Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the two races being held at Silverstone over the next fortnight. And they are, of course, the 2020 British Grand Prix, which will take place this weekend, and the wonderfully named 70th Anniversary Grand Prix scheduled for next weekend. Now, I know I say this every week, but I really am looking forward to the next two weekends, and I say that every week, by the way, because I genuinely do look forward to every single race weekend. But in this case, Silverstone is one of my favourite tracks on the calendar, and more often than not we tend to see at least an okay race, but they tend to be pretty good. So I am feeling quite optimistic about the next couple of races. And you know, last year's race was a good example of that. We saw some brilliant scrapping between the two Mercedes boys early on, and that got the crowd very excited. Of course, the director choosing to cut to the crowd just as Hamilton and Bottas are fighting side by side. The Finn did initially come out on top in terms of the on-track scrapping, but a safety car was deployed after Antonio Giovinazzi ended up in the gravel, and that helps Hamilton to jump Bottas, thanks to one of those cheap pit stops. Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc fought hard and brilliantly, including side-by-side action in the pit lane, as well as some epic side-by-side action on track 2. Literal wheel banging at times. It was brilliant, and yet another glimpse at the future right there. And by the way, Charles Leclerc's move around the outside of Pierre Gasly at Village was absolutely incredible. What an overtake. A little bit further back through the field, Sergio Perez made contact with Nico Hülkenberg, and that cost the Mexican a front wing. Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo enjoyed some very early battling side by side at one point through Copse. And of course, don't forget, right at the start of the race, the two Haas drivers made contact and both ended up retiring from the Grand Prix. But the big talking point of last year's race was without doubt the collision between Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen, with the German locking his wheels and running straight into the back of the Red Bull. Now, although both drivers were able to continue, Vettel was slapped with a penalty, and the incident also cost Verstappen a potential podium finish. Could he have challenged the Mercedes boys? Maybe a little bit of a tall order, but he was certainly on for a podium. But in the end, Hamilton took the win, securing the fastest lap on the final lap of the race, and overall a fantastic Grand Prix again at Silverstone. Right then, as ever with these previews, let's have a look at some of the stats. And Silverstone played host to the first ever Formula 1 World Championship event back in 1950, with Giuseppe Farina taking pole position, fastest lap and the win for Alfa Romeo. Over the years, Silverstone has hosted 53 races with 30 different drivers taking victory in that time. And in terms of the most wins at the track, Lewis Hamilton holds the driver record with 6, and Ferrari are the team with the most wins, notching up a total of 14. Perhaps a win this weekend is a bit of a tall order for them though. When it comes to qualifying, 34 different drivers have taken pole position at Silverstone, with Lewis Hamilton once again holding the record for the most poles with 6. The pole sitter has gone on to win on 19 occasions, and the winner has come from the front row 35 times, but it is possible to win from a little bit further back, with Emerson Fittipaldi holding the record for the lowest grid slot to victory, having started 7th back in 1975 and going on to win the race for McLaren on the Sunday. The track itself is 5.891 kilometres long. If you work in miles, that's 3.660, consisting of 18 corners, 8 of those to the left and 10 to the right, and come Sunday there will be a total of 52 laps for the race. At time of recording, just the 2 DRS zones again this weekend, with one running between turns 5 and 6, and the other down the hanger straight between turns 14 and 15, but I do wonder if they'll add a third for the 70th Anniversary Grand Prix next weekend. Just something else to try and mix things up a little bit, as they will be using exactly the same layout. The race lap record is held by Lewis Hamilton, surprise surprise, who delivered a 1:27.369 last year, but the track record is actually held by the Brit's teammate Valtteri Bottas, who posted a 1:25.093 on his way to securing pole position last season. So they are the stats then, but what does a lap around the famous circuit actually look like? Well, once again, here is Tom with this week's virtual hot lap around the Silverstone circuit.
Hey guys, Tom here, and welcome back to another F1 2020 track guide here on the F1 Word channel. And today we are here at Silverstone for the British and 70th Anniversary Grand Prix track guide. So here we go then, into turn number 1 at Silverstone with the new modified pit complex. Flat out through here, of course. Pretty easy in these current generation F1 cars, flat out through 2 as well. Into 3 and 4, you want to run it in 4th gear on entry into turn 3 into Village, and then open up turn 4, 2nd gear if you need it to try and get a bit more extra rotation. Try and get the power down nice and smoothly out of there using all the track and the curbing as we now open up the DRS along the Wellington Straight as we approach the heavy brake zone of Brooklands. Brake just before the 50-meter board, down to 6th gear and then down to 4th. open up the line to then get the nice run through Lovefield, try and go for a late apex and get that power down using all the exit curb there to really maximise your exit speed as we now go across the old pit complex and now into the old turn 1 Copse corner. Absolutely flat out in 8th gear in these current generation F1 cars as we now get ready for Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. Flat out through the left and the right, holding it in 8th. And then even now we're still flat, small little downshift, and then we just dab the brakes a little bit through the right, and then back on the gas out of Chapel onto the hanger straight with DRS wide open. We've now got one more heavy brake zone to come up after this corner, but this one is going to be Stowe. 6th gear corner, again another high speed one, very, very quick. And now we approach this final heavy brake zone, which is going to be the Val chicane, which feeds into Club corner. Down to 3rd gear, try and take a nice aggressive apex and open up the right to then get the run through the final corner at Club. And that is going to be a lap of Silverstone for this weekend's British Grand Prix and next weekend's 70th Anniversary Grand Prix, and possibly, due to COVID-19, maybe even a third one, as Catalonia looks to be a little bit uncertain at this point in time. But there you go, there is the lap guide. I'm now going to hand it back over to Sean for the rest of the video.
There you go then. Thank you once again to Tom for sending that lap over. There is, as always, a link to Tom's channel in the description, so please do go check him out, especially if you enjoy your F1 2020 gameplay. I am genuinely, and I'm not just saying this because he does the hot laps, but I'm really enjoying his My Team Career Mode playthrough. It's a good watch, so definitely go check him out. And also, of course, thank you as ever to Lights Out Blog for providing some of the stats for this preview. Time to talk tyres then. I know, as exciting as ever, but the compounds available for this weekend's British Grand Prix are the hard C1, the medium C2 and the soft C3. But for the 70th anniversary event next weekend, teams will be using tyre compounds that are a step softer, so the C2, C3 and C4 will be the tyres available for that race weekend. And during the first half hour of FP2 for that second race, teams will be allowed to test the unmarked 13-inch prototype tyre for next year, so that's something to keep an eye on in FP2. In terms of strategy for this weekend, Silverstone tends to be fairly hard on tyres, so although I think it's a safe bet to say that teams will target a one-stopper, it is very possible that we will see a two-stop race for many drivers this weekend. And last year's race did see a real mix of strategies, but was ultimately won with a medium to hard one-stopper. When it comes to the 70th Anniversary Grand Prix though, I'd say it's likely we will see a two-stop race from most drivers because, as already covered, the tyres are going to be softer, so if it's borderline with the harder tyres between 1 and 2 stops, I'd think that a two-stopper is highly likely. We'll see though. Of course, strategy could change if we see a safety car, and has been won at every single British Grand Prix since 2013, so there is a very good chance we will see another one this year. The weather could also play its part, even though we are in the middle of summer here in the UK, although at time of recording, it is expected to stay dry for all sessions, but will be overcast on Saturday and Sunday this week. And although really it's a bit of a long way off to be talking about weather for next weekend, it is also expected to stay dry. However, what I will say is that this is the UK, and what the weather forecast says and what the weather forecast actually does tend to be two very different things, so don't rule anything out. Now, there are a few things to look out for this weekend, including whether or not any team can take the fight to Mercedes. Red Bull will be hoping to close the gap over the next 3 races, and actually they surprised me with their pace at Silverstone last year, so maybe they will go quite well again this year. We really do need the likes of Red Bull to be as close as possible to Mercedes, even though the Silver Arrows look absolutely dominant and possibly untouchable right now. It is also worth noting that Alex Albon will have a new race engineer from this weekend onwards, with Simon Rennie, who of course previously worked with both Mark Webber and Daniel Ricciardo, stepping up to the race team. Ferrari have also made changes, although far more comprehensive than Red Bull, with a restructuring of its technical team and the introduction of a new performance development department. However, do not expect to see any real changes for the Scuderia in the short term, as Chairman John Elkann has warned that he does not expect to see the team getting back to winning ways until 2022, and has asked for even more patience from Ferrari fans. Just whilst I'm on Ferrari, I am really hoping to see more from their customer teams Alfa Romeo and Haas, but with Silverstone being very much a power track, I'm worried that they might find themselves towards the back again. I hope I'm wrong on that one, but with a combined total of 3 points so far, it's been a tough start for both teams, and it must be said that Gunther Steiner is not very optimistic about his team's chances at Silverstone, although Haas did look good in Hungary, so fingers crossed for a better weekend for both teams. So, with Ferrari expected to struggle this weekend, there could once again be opportunities for other teams at the front of the grid, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Racing Point can do. They were, at worst, the 3rd fastest car in Hungary, and I think we can expect to see them do very well over the next 3 race weekends again. I mean, after all, Silverstone and Barcelona are very much Mercedes tracks, and so you could say that Racing Point might be quite confident going to those venues. I also think McLaren could be right in the fight as well, and after a disappointing weekend in Hungary, at least compared to their races in Austria, they are going to want to bounce back pretty much immediately. And Renault continue to intrigue me as well. I have been so sure that they've had more to offer, but so far they haven't really delivered. What have they done? They've done 3 8th place finishes, 12 points from the opening 3 races. Yeah, I've been quite disappointed with them. So I'll be keeping a close eye on them again this weekend, and I'm hoping as well that Esteban Ocon has a better weekend too. It is also worth a mention that a number of teams, including Mercedes, Red Bull, Williams, McLaren and Renault, so half the grid, Sean, anyway, will be bringing upgrades and modifications to Silverstone, so keep an eye out for those during FP1 and FP2 tomorrow. Time for some predictions then, and, well, I can only see this going one way if I'm being honest. You can call me boring or a fanboy if you want, but the truth is I'm just being realistic. Lewis Hamilton has taken pole position at 4 of the last 6 races at Silverstone, with teammates Nico Rosberg and Valtteri Bottas the only ones to beat him since 2014, and Mercedes have taken pole at every race at Silverstone since 2013. If you couple that with the team's apparent dominant car this year, I think they will be P1 in quali once again, and I'm going to go for Hamilton pipping Bottas, just. Things do very much follow that pattern on a Sunday as well, with Hamilton winning 5 of the last 6 races at Silverstone, Sebastian Vettel, the one booking that trend with a win for Ferrari in 2018, and aside from that, Mercedes have won every other race at the track since 2013. So I fully expect to see Hamilton convert pole into victory on Sunday with Bottas second and Max Verstappen third. I sort of expect to see the Red Bulls behind Racing Point after quali, but I think Verstappen will have a little bit too much for Stroll and Perez on Sunday. That Red Bull definitely looks better in race trim. Although, don't rule the Pink Panthers out, they could easily grab a podium. That car is very good, as we know. So I expect the top 3 will be, in some order, Mercedes, Red Bull and Racing Point. But as I've already said, I think McLaren will have a chance of challenging on Sunday, but I feel like they will probably end up as the 4th best team across the whole weekend. And then I can see Renault and Ferrari battling for the tail end of the points. Before I go though, I do just want to say that I would love to see Alex Albon get himself on that podium. He has, depending on your view, rightly or wrongly come in for some criticism over the last few weeks, and a top 3 finish might just lift a little bit of that pressure. All in all though, I'm just hoping for a great Grand Prix. I'm not bothered who wins, I don't care who does well, I just want to see some great racing. That is it for the, well, I guess Silverstone preview then, but you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of this weekend down in the comments section. Who do you think will take pole position on Saturday, and what about the win this Sunday? Let me know your top 3. Now, I will be back with more content across the weekend as always, but in the meantime, don't forget that you can of course follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will catch you again in the next one. Bye bye.